Previously on Void Star Lab. RGBILLs. More RGBILLs. Even more RGBILLs. Millions of RGBILLs. The snake has RGBILLs. Secret RGBILLs. 2 scoops of RGBILLs. Ladies, gentlemen, and cyborgs, welcome to the grand finale of Operation Full RGB, my quest to build a powerhouse PC using nothing but rainbow lighting. Today, we put all those parts to work after we put some work into this poor innocent PC case. I could have gone with wraparound glass and let the parts do the talking. I could have grabbed a goofy showpiece festooned with gamer lighting galore. But these are meant to be filled with RGBILLs. Best case scenario, we're just coloring within the lines. No, we're gonna take a case specifically designed for people who hate RGBILLs, and we are gonna make it look like drag queen night at the roller rink when the DMT kicks in. If you saw the first part, you got a peek at our patient, the Fractal Design North XL. It's a large but very tasteful tower with a handsome natural wood faceplate. The whole thing is clearly designed for serious people who are above this childish color. You can even get this case without a window. In Brooke's words, the North XL looks way too nice to be something I own. Let's do something about that. First, we're gonna take that iconic wooden faceplate, you know, the reason you buy the case, and we're gonna fucking pile drive it into the trash. I had hoped to slip some RGBILL tape under the slats, but the rods are solid walnut and they are thoroughly glued to a sturdy frame. Why would you ever assume something's high quality? I had to start over from scratch, but don't worry, wood's biodegradable. Frame isn't, shut up. Here's my version. Apart from the lighter color and the wider dimensions, my homemade faceplate looks nearly identical. There's just one key difference, and if you're listening to this in the background, this is your 5-second warning to tab over. These slats might look like solid oak, but they're not. Hit it! These are RGB light bars wrapped in real wood. Wooden RGB light bars. RGB wood. Wood RGB. This is not a vinyl wrap, and it's not a paint job. What you are seeing is natural wood grain ripped right from a genuine tree corpse, and it is glowing red, green, and blue. This Elite Gamer lumber is one of my favorite things I have ever built, and you will not believe how easy it is to make. Gaze upon its brilliance as I plug this episode's sponsor, Brilliant.org. Brilliant is the most approachable way to pick up science, tech, engineering, and more. Every topic revolves around intriguing and interactive minigames, so you start by exploring the problem and then learn the equations that help you solve it. Brilliant even adapts to your learning style and skill level, so you're always presented with the perfect challenge. This approach is particularly good for abstract concepts like data science. Like, it's easy to get lost in the math, but by linking the real world to the equations that describe it, you'll develop a real intuition for the probabilities and statistics that make our world predictable. Each session sets up the next, so whether you want to write some Python code or read a schematic, you only need a few minutes here and there to start building powerful, usable skills. Turn time you'd waste scrolling into a daily habit of lifelong learning. Visit brilliant.org/Zack Freedman or click the link in the description for a full free month to try their entire catalog and save 20% off an annual premium subscription. Thank you, Brilliant, for paying the bills so I can focus on what really matters in life, making glowing wooden sticks. Each prismatic plank begins as a length of aluminum lighting channel, the exact stuff I used for my Chromance wall hexagon thing. After mounting the LED strips and drilling holes for the wiring, I busted out the secret ingredient: edge banding. This whole roll is a single wafer-thin strip of authentic oak backed with industrial-strength heat-activated adhesive. When you build something out of plywood, you can run this tree tape along the ugly tattered edges to make your cheap-ass plank look like an expensive solid slab of wood. So I took an iron, steam not soldering, and applied a thin strip of edge banding all down the aluminum channel sidewall. After repeating on the other side, I plastered a third strip over the top using the iron to carefully contour it around the diffuser's domed profile. I used a sharp X-Acto knife and coarse grit sandpaper to carefully knock down the overhangs, and because the top veneer overlaps the sides, I could round the edges over and create a seamless facade. Edge banding is only a fraction of a millimeter thick, so if I sanded just a bit too deep, I'd reveal the aluminum and ruin the magic. Finally, I capped both ends with a scrap of banding and carefully trimmed everything flush. A quick buff with fine grit sandpaper knocked off any splinters, and the entire channel was now sealed in a seamless wood surface. For the finishing touch, I buffed in a few layers of butcher block wax to bring out the natural wood grain. So I repeated this 6 times for a total of 7 slats and modeled and printed new crossbars. I degreased each slat's exposed aluminum and I mounted everything with E6000. I soldered the 5-volt and ground lines to a thin scrap of strip board and wired the strip's data lines in series. This will let us individually control every LED without the dimming you sometimes see on long runs of RGBLEDs. Since all the wires exit through the back and the joints are hidden behind the crossbars, there's no exposed electronics to spoil the immersion. I'm gonna level with you. I did not expect this stupid idea to work this well. Like, our custom wooden faceplate looks uncannily like a chunkier version of the North XL's original. Ours just so happens to contain 200 addressable LEDs. The red LED seems to shine through better than green or blue, but I don't... No knows. What do you say we add 2 million more? Last time we grabbed a 5.5-inch AMOLED, a display literally made of RGB LEDs. But I struggle to find a place to put it. The case might be XL supersized, but we're cramming so much crap in here, I had to think outside the box. The North XL's window doesn't cover the entire side of the case. There's the secondary steel panel about 100 millimeters wide that hides the front-mounted radiator and wire routing holes. We're gonna take our RGBLEDs up display and stick it right here. The AMOLED screen is designed for a Raspberry Pi, and it's got mounting bosses and custom fit connectors packed right in. So I bolted on a Pi 3, slapped heatsinks on the important bits, and added a fan. The fan also has RGBLEDs. Was this all just a pretense to add more RGBLEDs? My entire life is a pretense to add more RGBLEDs. We need to embed this Pi in the side panels, so prep my ice bath. We are doing some back alley surgery. I began by designing and printing a template to mark out the mounting points and Pi hole. I drilled an entry point and proceeded to rip that panel a new one with my sheet metal nibbler. This left terrifying serrated edges, so I covered them in electrical tape. It's not sloppy, it's rustic. These mounting bosses are going to leave a giant gap between the screen and the side panel, so to complete our Raspberry pustule, we need a bezel. I found a mounting bracket by an anonymous Voron user and carved in a track for my beloved extra slim 3mm LEDs. I printed this out in Cookie CAD Funfetti, a clear PETG sprinkled with multicolor glitter. Et voila! Our RGBLED screen has an RGBLED bezel flecked with red, green, and blue glitter. The easiest way to make a Pi-based PC dashboard is Mobro. They provide a ready-to-burn SD card image that renders sensors and system data supplied by a PC app. I had fun laying out an overcomplicated HUD, though I forgot to label anything, so I have no idea what any of this means. I've already got the Funfetti filament locked and loaded, so why not go mad with power? I pulled the feet off the case and designed my own. I gave each foot a channel for more 3mm LED tape, and I extended the feet about 15 millimeters so you can see them better. Yeah, so I made the feet of the computer glow with rainbows. I'll admit I may have scraped the bottom of the barrel and bit. Our next mod is my absolute favorite. Easily the dumbest bullshit in this entire stupid project. We're gonna hack the power button. The North has a gorgeous golden metal button and it's classy as heck, but it's missing the Iron Chef's secret ingredient. I ripped it out so fast I forgot to get footage of it. The pressable part pokes a tactile switch on the front panel PCB, so I, gently amputated the whole section with bolt cutters. Here's the replacement, a panel mount push button with a power icon and built-in addressable LEDs. And if there's any doubt that this is the perfect part for this project, it perfectly fits the stock button's buttonhole. But revving up a rig this ridiculous really deserves more drama than a single push button can deliver. So I drilled 3 holes above the power button to mount 3 flip-top missile switches, one each for red, green, and blue. The switch paddles have built-in LEDs, but these need 12 volts to light up. This is fine, I can just get that from a SATA connector. The red switch powers the green switch, green powers blue, blue powers the button, and the button energizes the coil of a read relay which safely shorts the much lower voltage front panel header on the motherboard. Don't worry about me accidentally flipping a switch shut and killing the PC. The switches just enable the push button, they won't turn it off. These switches are enormous, and I had to nibble the fuck out of the chassis to get them in there. But now, firing up this majestic machine feels like activating a giant mecha or firing a moon-sized space laser. Like it should. One final touch. To commemorate our best patrons, I used my carvera to engrave our collaborators' names onto a sheet of acrylic. I haven't done this yet. I hope it works. It didn't. Zack from the future here. The carvera's motor driver blew out, and by the time I realized I had broken half my tools too, I had to 3D print the plaque instead. Clearly, fate itself wants me to stay in my 3D printed lane. We've modded all there is to mod, and this chassis is dripped out head to literal feet. There's just one more thing to do before we put this all together. We must peel. Ooh, that's a good peel. Slower. Slower. Not that slow. No, I liked it better the first time. Wrap your dirty fingers around that corner and peel that fucking film. Holy shit, how much film does this motherboard have? Oh, sorry, peel coma. Can I bum a smoke? I ripped out Fractal's pre-installed non-RGB case fans and carefully lowered our motherboard and CPU radiator into their new home. At this point, they're kind of a package deal. The Ice Mist Rad is going to be our front intake, so I mounted its fabulously illuminated 140mm fans pointing inwards. For the finishing touch, I slipped on our RGBILL hose wraps because even the plumbing should have rainbows. That's what I want to do to our house. RGB toilet. The Ice Mist lets you stack up an arbitrary number of optional swiveling fans, which all of course have RGB. For now I added 3. We are going to put more here down the line, but I just don't want to block all the other slots with an RGBILL fan on a stack of RGBILL fans on an RGBILL AIO with even bigger RGBILL fans connected with RGBILL tubing. Just a reminder, we've only installed one thing so far. Next up, M2 drives. Our Patriot Viper and its RGBILL Snake go down first, then I scraped off MSI's factory installed thermal pads to fit our 990 Pro and T700 in their chunky new upgraded coolers. Every fan, including these, is getting either daisy-chained or wired straight into the motherboard. We never actually needed a fan hub. If only it was the same for RGBILLs. Hide your wife, hide your girlfriend, hide your will they won't they isekai harem. We are about to insert the girthiest graphics card in the West. Last episode I swapped the MSI GeForce RTX 4090 Supreme Liquid X's 2 high-quality stock fans with 3 gimmicky rainbow fans, which involved printing 50% more radiator. I'm mounting all of that to the case's ceiling where the GPU fans will serve as the exhaust. If you're about to actually me about cooling the graphics card with air that's already been warmed by the CPU, may I recommend you leave home and join the circus. Don't worry, you're qualified. This fat bastard only wants one thing in life, and that's using its sheer bulk to tear itself off the motherboard. Let's give this gigachunk the support it needs. First, the cantilever bracket. This one mounts to the PCI slots and reaching horizontally to do nothing. It doesn't fit. The GPU shroud is shaped like a stealth bomber. There's no flat surface for this to prop up. That's fine. Everything's fine. This GPU is a unit of such absoluteness, I actually bought 2 support brackets. So I assembled my fancy schmancy tempered glass Atlas brace, went to prop up the end of the GPU, which is gonna do nothing, because the CPU hoses are in the way. I don't need these off-the-shelf anti-sag scaffolds. I'll print my own GPU supports with hookers and blackjack. Instead of hookers, I glued on some RGBILLs, and instead of blackjack, I glued on more RGBILLs. I slipped on my second set of RGBILL hose sleeves, only to discover that some genius at MSI made the tubing leave the graphics card perpendicular to the motherboard. That means there's always going to be a tight bend there, and it keeps prying the RGBILLs right off. So I had to design and print some handcuffs to keep them from escaping. I mean, I didn't have to, but I did. Next up, the strimmer. The RGBILLed up power cables I still don't know how to pronounce. I snapped the big ATX extension into the motherboard and curved it back. Then I secured the 12VH power onto the GPU and made extra sure it was secure, because this is the one that starts burning if it comes loose. I want the PC to be fire, not be on fire. The location of the fire is very important. Unfortunately, these are the only strimmers Lian Li makes, and there's no RGB in excuse, so I personally gave all the remaining cables a strim job. I got some white split loom and silicone RGBILL tape and rigged up rainbow cables for the hard drives, USB power delivery, and RGBILLs. That's right, the cables sending signals to the RGB LEDs are RGBILLs. Addressable LEDs pass commands from pixel to pixel, so you can control RGBILLs through other RGBILLs. The next part is so stupid, I couldn't figure out how to segue into it. I bought a box of multicolored anodized thumb screws, and now every piece of 632 hardware in finger poking range is red, green, or blue. Huzzah. Let's add in the rest of our parts, starting with the RGBILL SSDs. And yes, these are the RGB SSDs with the cursedest cable I've ever seen. No matter how many lights I put in this thing, that cable is all I'm gonna be able to see. I just bolted the SSDs to the PSU shroud's ventilation holes. There are 2.5-inch bays in back, but then you wouldn't be able to see them, and that, takes all the fun out of it. And we can't forget our custom-built RGB hard disk, quite possibly the second in existence. I mounted the RGB hard disk to the 2.5-inch to PCI adapter we printed last episode. This is going front and center, as far away from electromagnetic fields as I can get it. This turned out to be a moot point because plugging in the hard disk instantly hangs the whole OS. Just removing its lid seems to have immediately destroyed it. I even built a second one, in case I had screwed something up, but I had the same problem. So yeah, I guess that's why no one mods their hard drives. The build process is approaching completion. That's what Elon Musk said to his ex-wife during sex. Our motherboard, unlike Elon's ex-wife, has 2 empty slots left to fill. In our previous video, I 3D printed a pair of Potemkin RAM to make it look like we have 4 sticks installed. Why? I don't want to talk about it. Unlike the real deal, these need separate RGB cables because they don't draw power from the RAM socket itself, and I don't want to talk about it. At the last second, I also decided to add a 22 terabyte hard disk to store archival footage, but this has no RGBILLs, so I locked it in the basement like an ugly baby. Our CPU cooler has 3 optional fans hanging off of it, but now that we're done tinkering, we can see how high these babies can fly. 4, 5, 6, 7, In a cruel twist of fate, whenever I stacked up more than 3 fans, sooner or later they just fell off. Bear in mind, in 1998, The Undertaker threw Mankind off Hell in a Cell and plummeted 16 feet through an announcer's table. Imagine if Mankind were 4 fans and the table were a $2,000 graphics card full of coolant. Can't risk it, so we gotta stick with 3. The case is bulging at the seams, but I've been sandbagging one final RGBILL accessory. We need an ARGB hub, and I found one with RGBILLs on it. Our RGB hub has RGB on it. The cycle is complete. With every part in place, I went to route the wires, and holy fucking shit, sweet baby Ray nipples. Fuck, what have I unleashed upon this poor earth? I forgot, RGB parts have an extra cable to control the lighting. A few of these even need separate dedicated control boxes. When I stuffed this case with RGBILL mods, crammed it with RGBILL parts, and ran RGBILL tape everywhere else, I had more than tripled the cable count. The cable compartment was a wiry abyss so primordially terrifying, so existentially chaotic. Attempting to straighten this out would make Cthulhu write novellas about a bigger Cthulhu. So I slammed the side panel over it and drank hard liquor till I could stop hyperventilating. The build is done, the time has come, there's only one more test to run. The smoke test. We power on the system, and if it smokes, the test fails. I flick the missile switches. I hit the button, and nothing. The switch's LEDs weren't even lit. The motherboard itself has an onboard backup power button, so I grabbed something long and pokey and gave it a long poke. The system lit up, and so did the missile switches. Just out of curiosity, I pressed the case's ERG button again, and the PC turned off. I pressed it a 3rd time, but it wouldn't turn back on. I realized what was happening. I had caught 22 myself with the oldest, dumbest move in the case modding book. When an ATX power supply turns off, it is off. There's not a single volt flowing through any wire except for 5 volt standby power, so the motherboard can detect the power button. The missile switches that enable that power button are powered off the 12 volt rail, but that doesn't power up till the power button turns it on, which it needs 12 volts to do. My face struck palm at such high velocity my beard got a crop circle. So I cut the motherboard standby line and spliced in a boost regulator to generate 12 volts that never turned off. Janky, crude. After what I did to that RAM, my Overton window is in the astral plane. This is it. 3, 2, 1, get it on. The hard disk revved up, the fans roared to life, the memory memorized. Windows promptly detected about 5,000 new components, thought I had tried to pirate it, and refused to authenticate, so I had to buy a second copy like a fucking chump. But listen, this thing slaps every cheek on the Western Hemisphere, and the Western Hemisphere is the cheek of the world. Every RGBILL has been working flawlessly, proudly yet relentlessly jabbing a metaphorical fork directly into my optic nerve. Ladies, gentlemen, and cyborgs, we set out to go full RGB, and if we didn't get there, I don't know how we could get closer. Every part in sight, motherboard, hard drives, the GPU, the fans, the wires, the brackets, everything is saturated with individually addressable RGB LEDs. The liquid coolers have RGBILLs, the M2 drives are RGBILLs. The power button is red, green, blue, and RGBILL. We have a dashboard display made of LEDs, ringed LEDs, and around the corner are wooden LEDs. I want to hug this thing. I had so much fun building this project. I couldn't have done this without your support, and hopefully this turbocharged machine carves days off the video production process so I can pay you back with more projects, more puns, and more pandemonium. I've put every model I printed in the description. They're all free, and while you're there, you can find every part I put into this build. If you'd like to directly support future projects and videos, visit patreon.com/Zack Freedman. Each episode, I thank lab scientists, shout out collaborators, and butcher the names of our lab assistants. But since I shot this video in advance, it's probably outdated. So I will pass the mic to future Zack. To future, I am Zack from the future. The future is here. Past Zack always makes me do his work for him. What a dick. Today's featured lab scientists are Zoe, Galimnoni, and Ninja Smurf. Our colorful cast of collaborators includes Noblock, Zachary Wilson, Microwave, Chuck Me Harder Baby, The Benevolent Misanthrope, Bitrot, SXP, Turner Zay, Schleppy the Schwagster, Zombo DB, The Suits Ruined Our Fun, and Scott Rainey. Enjoy being permanent parts of the most RGB PC. Don't worry, Easter eggs are coming back soon. Our lab assistants are Iron Rain, Rihanna99 and Urch, Cody, Brynwolf Schulte, Nobi Johnson, Olive Robbins, Socks McGox, Cameron Ogletree, Protagonist, Burnett, Kevin DeGraff, Shorts, Martin Titonium, The Krolster, Jack Moran, Roger Pinkham, Thunder Chicken, Circle Zero, Viwatch, The Snow Chow Cabal, Al Finger, John Loves Jen, Travis Pocky, Dale BB, SKL, Trump, Crash Doom, Mohr, Brad Cox, Baden-Württemberg, Onyx Plague, The Q101, The Monk, Powerful CCH, Chris Floofy Kitsune, Nathan, Cliff Henning, Joseph Ribka, Michael, Bill Schooler, Parasocial Bestie, Ergay, Antitoxivigelli, Craft Computing, Slippy McToof, Carnamon, Gotham, Amanishi, Jiggle Puffs, Danny Devoid, Paul Gibbs, Quantumly Tingle, Dennis Kempen, Styx, Gunner, Probably Not Raccoons, Talon, Stormy Design, Dr. Mrs. the Mirrorman, Robert Breeze, Zach, Zass Harvey, Earth is 3D Printed, Granville Schmidt, Cameron McPherson, The Haunted Water Heater, Nat Queen of Lemons, Mermaid Narwhals, and Foreign Agent Maxwell, King Shaming Walrus, Boulder Creek Yard, James, Acalia, Callsign Carrot, Burn Duck 3, Michael Creamer Jr., Kathy and Brent Irvine, Sunbird Cat, Aaron Steers, Acorn 6A6F, Shane Frederick, Scroto Saggins, Kevin Sumner, Lost Dryer Socks, Partial Eclipse, Kermit the OG Frog, Moving Plate Belt Printer, Chartelos, Comrade Spamule, My Dog is a Bear, No Disassemble, Nova Ren, Jason Not a Lawyer, Blammo, Clayton Easley, The Orbital Mechanic, Haley Kerman, Steve's Dad, Point Device, A Right to Repair, Renaud Bataille, Rusty Flute, Incognito, Spire, Eddie, Land Jesus, Amirahum, DBD, Zap, Travis Hippa, Mitch 3D, Tierra Fullheart, Nuclear 314, Robo Key Mao, Good Suck, Michael Runhart, Period Clots, Tactical Possum, Robert the Bob, Buck Turgidson, Doom Crew Inc., Cybertrash, Heybrook, VK2KTJ, Evan Kenny, Lydia K, Mike Kelly, Moonkin, Elite Giant, Des Baldonado, Just You and Garbage, Trans Rights, The Cuttlefish, Bob Dobbington, Max Lux, Sorceress MLE, Quality Doggo, and Big Bird Tommy, What Goes Bump in the Night. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the future, which is right now, because I'm Zach from the future. Bye-bye!